Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Not the Newsletter. We're on episode 9 this week, where we discover and talk about cybersecurity technology and AI that we don't have time to cover as much in our newsletter. I'm here again with Noah Wiley, rocking an awesome orange shirt today for fall. Excited about that. We have some awesome things to cover today, so let's jump right into it. Noah, should we start with Microsoft? Obviously, they've been, and maybe everyone's been talking cybersecurity this year, but I think they've been getting a lot of flack recently, and even from some government agencies. So they've been spending maybe some more of their effort focusing on it this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you for complimenting the shirt. You can't see on camera, but I'm also wearing black jeans because I'm trying to be fully in the fall.
It's good. I like the look.
Ethos mode, whatever. But yes, you are right. So Microsoft, obviously, massive tech company, and they seem to take like a pretty good stance on security. But I guess there's a lot of internal workings that maybe weren't super good on security. Like their projects aren't always led with security first. A lot of the employees always didn't take security like super seriously, not to the fault of them, but maybe it just didn't really think it was in their purview to talk about. And last year, at some point in November, Microsoft started kind of cracking down on it more because more recently, like you said, from some government agency, I have to find the name, they got a pretty scathing report.
I have it here. It's the U.S. Cyber Safety Review Board. So,
point being, Microsoft had a lot to clean up. So, Microsoft's new initiative from their CEO, Satya Nadella, I hope I'm saying that right, their whole kind of thing now is like security first. No matter what you do, like employees are graded on security, how they handle it, what they do, like in each of your reviews, like your initiatives, your projects, your workflow, everything has to take like security first, which I think is a great idea.
Right.
Basically just like a big, overhaul basically of security, just because Microsoft has had, little hiccups here and there with security.
And it
is one
feels,
way to put it.
Yeah, it feels weird though, because I feel like as a software company, that kind of should have been your priority anyway, right? To have security first. I feel like as you think about security and software and it feels like they should have already been doing that, but maybe.
But what do you do when you're 100,000 employees?
I guess
like maybe that's harder. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying maybe it's harder.
Right. I just,
you know what I'm saying?
I just have this mentality of just like everyone that works at Microsoft is like an S tier nerd, right?
Have to be, yeah.
Right. So like that. So you're just like, how could these guys not be thinking about that as they're designing software and implementing technologies and doing things? You would think like, okay, I'm going to implement something. I would think the first thing I would think of is, how am I going to two-factor authenticate this thing? How am I going to, integrate this into the ecosystem? How am I going to create security? Whatever. That would be one of the first conversations I think I would have with myself. But
there's also things I know, like kind of later on in this kind of like article and news stuff that we've been kind of reading about this, is that they're now, so not previously, but now from the way that I'm looking at, they're like, oh, we're now tracking like over 99% of its physical network and like inventory system and everything. Like, again, if you're Microsoft, wouldn't you have already been doing that? Like, it's kind of that, like, that's surprising to me. Again, not to like knock anybody, it's just an interesting observation, honestly. But I mean, so that was, what does that mean then? That means like no matter your size, like it doesn't matter. Like you can't really just get away with anything. Like you got to take all of it seriously.
Right.
Even if like you can be even Microsoft and like not take it seriously enough, and then it comes back to get you. So like, what does that mean for everyone else? It means everyone just needs to be like kind of like what you were saying, what they're saying. Like everything you do, whether you're nerdy or not, just needs to be with like security in mind.
Sure. It's funny too. It sounds like they've done some public-facing changes too. Even with Entra ID and rotating keys and some other things, it seems like they've integrated some security things that are not even internal.
Yeah.
As they sort of do things, it sounds like there's even a lot of tenants entirely that have just probably because of these not logged in recently enough or whatever, that they've sort of, the token gets rotated and then that tenant sort of dies because there's no access to it anymore.
Right.
So it does feel like some of these things are creating better public-facing security to the end user as well, not just necessarily like internal. That it was something that they, as they reviewed it, they were just like, hey, these other things that we do could be better as well.
I also didn't realize, I mean, it makes perfect sense, but this is just a fun fact that they have 5 million software builds each month.
That's a lot.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, again, like you kind of think, like you're saying, like, how do you even let this happen? But like, I don't know.
That's a lot to track.
People are not, no one's perfect. Nothing is perfect. And when you're that large and you have 5 million like software update, build, whatever per month that you're like building and testing and repackaging, whatever, like, I don't know. It's just crazy to think about. And then also in Microsoft's own, they created a new, Cybersecurity Governance Council, and they have 13 deputy CISOs on it, some of which are like current Microsoft hires, some of which are new Microsoft hires, which obviously for a massive company of an absolute massive amount of things to like cover, but not every single company is maybe going to have like a dedicated team per se. But I think it does kind of prove the point that like you should have someone's role within your company should be to be taking it, whether you outsource to someone else or it's someone internally, should be to like take it extremely seriously, because it often gets kind of like overlooked as like, well, we do antivirus and we do email filtering, like, oh, that's probably good enough. Like whatever, like, but if someone's not like overviewing that, like eventually things slip through the crack, kind of like it did at Microsoft eventually.
Yep, exactly. And it looks like they only have 34,000 full-time engineers working on it. So
Only. Yeah.
So just that as an entry point, it's not a bad
Can't be that
not a bad
hard.
starting point.
Yeah. So, and the last thing I just want to say about this, because they have the little slogan that I do kind of like, that Microsoft implementing new standards by using their new slogan, which I really like: start right, stay right, and get right. That's a very...
But that's exactly my point. Is like, wouldn't you
Why don't you start
why
right?
wouldn't you
Yeah.
start there? Like, I would imagine, like, it's what year is it that we're not just immediately going to be like,
Well, they're starting right now.
So 2024, we're starting with security. Good. We didn't do that in 2019 or 17 or 18, but now we're ready.
It's relevant now.
Yeah.
Not just rip on Microsoft, but
Start right, stay right, and get right. Good.
doesn't that not make sense? Wouldn't get right have to be...
Unless that's, yeah, you're right. I don't know. Unless that's a thing.
Don't you have to get right to stay right?
Unless the thing that you start with, then stay with, doesn't stay, and so you have to get it back to right again after it's
maybe
it
that's
started
what
right,
it
it stayed right. It didn't always stay right, so you got to get it back to right.
is. All jokes aside,
I'm not in marketing, so I don't know what all these fancy
No.
slogans say.
not at all.
Yeah, it's probably more of a thing you can say internally, so that if someone's like, getting off the beaten track, you can be like, what even is? I'm trying to think of like a nerd way of like, is this some acronym like SRSRGR? SRSRGR,
Maybe
right?
make it brought up in their performance reviews.
Yeah.
Point being, all jokes and everything aside, and besides the legitimate things that maybe they should have done this a lot earlier, it is great to see, and I think it can set a good example for what other people should do, is that you just have to take it ridiculously seriously no matter who you are. So
Yes, 100% serious.
cool. What's next?
Well, so I think we kind of talked about the fact that, like, as we thought about this, there's kind of that security first model of how am I going to enforce this? How am I going to secure it? How am I going to whatever? So I thought we could go to two-factor authentication, because we kind of, we always talk about that and it's good. And I saw a video on the weekend from the YouTube channel Veritasium, 16 million subscribers. People probably know who that is. And they hacked Linus Tech Tips, another sort of tech YouTuber,
Very large tech YouTuber.
very large tech YouTuber, probably maybe the biggest right at this point.
Yeah,
Close
at
to
minimum
anyways,
one
yeah.
of the biggest, maybe the biggest, yeah.
And they were receiving his phone calls. They were receiving his text messages, a whole bunch of other things. They were just sort of taking over his phone, but he didn't know. So he was getting calls from people he was expecting, and they were just going to, I think his name is Derek, right, from Veritasium.
That sounds right.
And he was just picking up the call and talking to him and whatever. And so it was just shocking that, and even Linus said the same thing. He's like, you guys aren't even hackers. Like, how did you do this? Like,
Right.
not trying to be rude, but like, how did you do this?
Yeah.
And funny enough, it's all run on this really, really old protocol from sort of like car phone,
70s era.
chunky thing in your car, where they were just like, it was a sort of an iteration of the analog phone, as the network was built sort of to prevent people from calling internationally. It's actually really a cool video. I'd say go watch it. It kind of gets back into the like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs era of they were like actually hacked, sort of like how to do like long distance calling by like getting a session token with the like phone provider and then staying on the session and then like dialing a different number. And it's a cool video. I'd say go watch it.
I'll have to check that out.
But they kind of go into this whole SS7 thing, which is how all the networks function. So that if you're roaming, say in a different country, your call can get passed through. It's the technology that runs so that if you're on AT&T in Delaware and you live in the UK somewhere, that it would be like, hey, it'd find a tower and it would go back to your tower and say, hey, I'm this person, I do have access, and then there would be sort of a shared network. And obviously AT&T would then bill from Delaware, whatever your service would be in London or whatever. So, but because that system is so prevalent, now there's a sense of too many people in the kitchen, too many cooks in the kitchen, where like in the 70s when it was built, it was, I don't even know who would have been alive back then. AT&T, and
Would it be Bell Systems back
yeah,
then?
something Bell, and I don't know, maybe it's Sprint. They probably were not even around yet at that point. So because there was only a couple players in the game, they could secure the traffic between each other, and there was not anything else. Now, because of SS7, like, okay, I need to send SMS to every platform now. I can get an SMS thing. So there's a whole bunch of players in this SS7 thing now, and so it makes it a little bit easier to hack into when there's just too many people in there, because there's bad actors now that will kind of sell some of that data, some of that information, and we won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but about how the hacks work and all that sort of stuff. But it's a fairly open network that you can sort of just buy yourself into now.
Right.
And kind of scary that both you can get phone calls and text messages.
That's wild, yeah.
So I think my takeaway, again, being a tech podcaster, is the fact that two-factor authentication via SMS is not secure. And I know we've kind of said that before, like, oh, it's not secure, don't use it. But this is a sort of a real-world example that it's not complicated to do. You can buy access to SS7. They even showed some people, I think it was people in the government, they didn't say who.
Yeah.
You could go online, I'm sure it's dark web, and buy their SS7 like IMSI number and all that stuff for like $13,000 a month, and you could just get all their phone calls and you could get all their text messages and do whatever you want with it. Scary stuff. So you definitely want to make sure that you're not getting your multi-factor authentication stuff via phone call, via SMS. It was just proof that system probably needs a bit of an overhaul as well. You joked that even iMessage is better. So obviously iMessage is end-to-end encryption. So
right, and I don't think that it technically, well, it is unless if you're using iMessage to text someone on Android. Then it completely loses all of it.
As soon as you lose that connection, for sure. Yeah. So you still couldn't get a two-factor authentication because it's going to come to your phone as an SMS. That's never going to be an iMessage.
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen it. I think it's always SMS, right? Yeah.
Unless if they somehow do RCS, but I don't think they probably would.
Right.
Which would be
now
nice.
that iOS 18 is out, maybe they'll do RCS.
It's about time.
But I still don't. Yeah, I feel like the SS7 hack would have to be SMS. It didn't seem like it was encrypted.
I think it's SMS only.
Yeah, 100%. So
SMS is still a gigantic,
yeah,
massively used, and even like so iOS 18, like you're saying, they now support RCS mostly because they were forced to do it, not because they wanted to, which is a whole other story. About Apple being
what is RCS for people that don't know?
Oh yeah, really quick. So from like the 70s and on, or 80s on, whenever texting became like a thing, which maybe was before my time, I don't know. But there was this built on the standard called SMS, which is like simple message service or something like that. It was basically like how texting worked. It was the communication protocol back and forth. It was really simplistic. It worked really well. It was very like open and easy for everyone to use, but
and very really light, so you didn't take a lot of data.
Exactly. It was really easy to use.
Although back in the day, carriers used to charge a nickel or something, even though it was like 0.1 of a kilobyte.
Free money.
Yeah.
But anyways, RCS is basically started like in like 2015, something like that, is like the evolution of that. That kind of brings it more similar to like an iMessage. I hate to compare it to iMessage and assume that iMessage is the gold standard, even though in America that's kind of what it is, unfortunately. So RCS does a lot of things like it, like better media, and like you send pictures and videos without it like getting really crunched on SMS. It's end-to-end encrypted, and it just is like it's like the next evolution of like texting, kind of bring everything else kind of similar to like an iMessage like or Facebook Messenger like experience. But point being, RCS is a lot safer because like it's all end-to-end encrypted and everything's safe, and you can't just like kind of be like a man in the middle and like see the data going back and forth. In SMS, you can if you know how to do it correctly, and that's where the danger is. But like Chris was saying, most of the like if you go on your bank, if you go on like your whatever, go on I don't know, any website that like uses like here's the 6-digit text to your phone. That's almost all SMS. Right. And it'll tell you on your phone if it's like SMS. That is not safe. If someone knows like the connection between you and the thing and knows how to get into that, they can just read that code.
Right. And I still wouldn't recommend it for use. Even if they started using RCS, I don't know that I would recommend it either.
Not.
Because as an end user, I don't know that you're going to notice when your text feed changes from RCS to SMS and back and forth.
It kind of says it, but
it kind of does. I'm just saying I don't know that I would want to put that on the end user to make sure has this thread been turned into RCS? I don't know because you have to go up far enough, and has it been turned back into like
that's
it could
fair.
Be, I think it's one of those you'd probably just be like, no, let's
just don't use it.
Just don't use it. Yeah.
So what's the alternative then? Like to not so like everyone always knows text is bad. Like
text I don't know if everyone knows that. I don't think everyone.
No. Okay, well,
let's assume that's
fair. Everyone should know that text is bad.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't think everyone does know. What is a good alternative?
So obviously the alternative would be to use a rolling code authenticator or some sort of push notification system.
Right.
The weird thing for me, honestly, and I think maybe this is a thing that Microsoft can do in their security overhaul thing, is a lot of times the backup is still SMS.
Right.
So it's like, oh, if my rolling code authenticator is done, I threw my phone in a river, whatever, I don't have access to that somehow. The sort of like failover backup is SMS or phone call. And it's just like, couldn't the hacker just use that as their, like, oh, yep, nope, so I don't have my authenticator code, like just move to the secondary
Is
protocol.
the thing of like lesser of two evils though? Is like, well, do you want to just have a password? Do you want to have this backup that's still technically bad? You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's the mentality kind
Sure,
of.
and I guess it's slightly, it's slightly bad, but yeah. So it's just one of those things that, yeah, I don't know. I just think some of those things need to come out, because obviously some of that stuff can get backed up now. You can sync those to your accounts, and those can be somewhere else so that you'd still need a phone, I suppose. You'd have to get your app back on something and get it working again. But there has to be some sort of push that we can no longer rely on a text for two-factor authentication at some point. So hopefully Microsoft is watching this and is implementing that in their next iteration of the thing. And we were talking before this even, is some banks don't even have MFA yet, and in any capacity, which seems hilarious. And it's just like,
it's insane.
I don't know that I feel bad, because it's just like, I know that if something goes wrong, I'm just going to be like, call your attorney and be like, my bank got hacked, but they literally don't even have MFA available to me.
Right.
It's not that I just didn't pick it up, or I picked the wrong one. I should have done a rolling code one, and I picked SMS, and that's on me.
Right.
Sometimes there's none, and I'm just like, well, that's their fault. If they lose all of their money, like, hope their insurance is good, because we're all just going to come knocking on the door.
Right.
So,
also on that note, on rolling code things, not to be whatever, but if you do do rolling codes, which is great, you totally should. Don't reset your phone unless those are backed up. And someone over there is nodding their head because they made that mistake, and it was a very miserable time for them.
And that's before, though, the rolling code authenticator stuff. Well, it's not all of them, I suppose, but I know Google.
You have to log into a Google account. Point being, it's really easy to like back them up. It's just if you don't have your codes back up and you reset a phone, those codes are gone.
Right.
They're completely gone. Like, you're not getting them back.
And it was funny. It's a nerd thing, but before they let you back them up, I always had sort of like a dummy phone, like a throwaway phone in a bin somewhere. So I'd always, like, whenever I got a new code, I would turn my phone on and I'd pull it out of the drawer, turn my phone on, like scan the QR code on both phones so that I'd have it on whatever. So that if I ever lost my phone or something went wrong, or you leave it at home, even you come into the office and need to get logged into things, I just pull my old burner phone out of the drawer and do that. And I know that not everyone has a burner phone, but
phone.
People upgrade their phone, right? So it's like,
no, it's good. You might have one
an
laying
iPhone
around.
8, just like, who cares? It's like, I can hand it in for $50 to Apple, or I can keep it in a drawer and then use it as rolling code backup. So now I don't need that anymore. But yeah, it is something definitely to keep in mind. But there's better things. There's better things than SMS. We just got to find a way to.
That's the point. Yeah, SMS is bad, and it's been proved many times that SMS is bad.
Right.
So let's stop using it.
So hopefully they can figure that out.
Maybe in the next 10 years.
Yep, next 10 years.
All right. What's our last topic? What do we have?
So I think the last thing you brought up, which would be a good one, is the sort of Qualcomm Intel potential merger thing. Don't want to get the cart before the horse, but it does look like there's maybe some conversations between Qualcomm and Intel about a merger. And it would be the biggest merger in tech history.
Who are Qualcomm and Intel?
Well, Qualcomm sells chips and good stuff for, a lot of times they're in phones now, right? So they're doing a lot of
phones, mobile devices,
phones, 5G radios and things like that.
And some very new laptops, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And Intel has been around for, I don't know, forever.
Yeah, I don't know, though, that they necessarily need an intro, right? But
name brand, like, processor for laptops, well, not yours, laptops, desktop, servers.
And now they're changing their moniker and naming convention to Intel Ultra instead of Intel Core something.
Yeah. But then why is this coming up? Because it looks like Intel, I don't know if people follow stock market, stuff like that, because both these are publicly traded companies. Intel has always been decently strong up until, I mean, they're still a gigantic, like, $100 billion company, so I don't want to say they're doing bad.
But from the beginning of the year, it looks like they're
been kind of doing rough.
They've been kind of on this decrease. They had like a massive just crash sometime. I don't even know what that is, but like
a lot of people
in August.
A lot of people attribute it to, I mean, again, stock price would be a lot.
Like the CrowdStrike thing?
No, a lot of people claim, and again, there's no like definitive reason because it can be a handful of things. A lot of people claim that Intel kind of faltered and wasn't really good at jumping on like the AI train of like generative AI because you got like NVIDIA who like perfectly did it, and now they're like a $2 trillion company.
But it looks like Qualcomm did the same thing. It looks like they had sort of a matching drop, kind of in the similar time window.
I'm not 100% sure what that is, but a lot of people say Intel specifically is because they kind of botched a lot of generative AI stuff, and they just kind of made some other not great decisions. I'm trying to remember what they were off the top of my head. Point being,
changing their name to Core Ultra instead of
maybe that's what it was. Yeah,
we just figured this out.
But
I'm just kidding.
A lot of it's just people just blame Intel on like not really following the market super well, and then
Sure.
just kind of falling behind a little bit. Again, they're still a gigantic company, but their value has dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
So Qualcomm has informally, as it's been told, there's been no like official formal offer from Qualcomm being like, we want to buy Intel for $98 billion or whatever it is, but it just has been in talks. So that would be, there's a couple of things, even if it isn't official, it's still interesting to think about, because one, it would, depending on how they do it, if they were just to wipe out the Intel brand, which they probably wouldn't, but it would be one less
Player in the market.
player in the market, right? That's where I was looking for.
You worry about competition. Although I don't know that Qualcomm and Intel compete with each other.
No, but it'd be one company who is very big into both markets
Right.
or sub-markets, whatever.
Right.
The reason that it might happen, they have not made an official offer, but they would most likely hit a massive amount of government like antitrust resistance, because it'd be like the biggest like tech merger ever if it were to happen. And like for example, Broadcom tried to bid for Qualcomm, it looks like in 2017 for 117 billion, but like that was blocked. But like this deal would most likely be very similar amounts, like 98 billion, 117 billion. So like there's very, very big chance it gets blocked.
Once you're at 93 billion, what's the next like 25, 30? What does that make? Yeah.
I know. I just love gigantic numbers. It's ridiculous.
So the next one was kind of close, which happened recently too, is Microsoft bought Activision.
Right.
So that was 70 billion-ish.
But that was under massive scrutiny. I'm surprised that one went through. But that was under gigantic scrutiny. I think that one almost didn't go through.
Sure.
But
yeah, it's a weird deal. It sounds like Qualcomm is just like they believe in Intel, and it's like,
yeah,
it's on sale right now. They're down 40% this year. Let's see if we can buy them, right? Like I know they've got it. It's one of those. I wonder if it's just one of those things where they know the insides of it, of like, hey, maybe they're just being a little lazy, and they have the tech that could go to that whatever the next thing is,
right? And
they just kind of got set in their ways. You get big that way. Not that I would know, but I imagine it's fairly easy to get that big and be like, hey, we're Intel. We're just going to sort of like keep on going.
Forever,
you're not going to innovate. You're not going to sort of forecast. And not that they're going to not do that. I'm sure they are, but it's probably a little bit easier to sit back on your tail and be like, hey, what other chip would you put in your laptop besides an Intel one? Like, what choice would you, maybe AMD, but that's like a small percentage of their market, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Unless you're building a computer, I just don't see AMDs in much production stuff.
Right.
So they kind of didn't have a ton of competition. So I think they were just like, keep on going. And maybe it kicked them in the butt.
Maybe.
Complete speculation. I love it.
Absolutely.
Someone's going to go in the comments and be like, that's not what happened, Chris.
You're allowed to call us out if that's what happened.
Yes, please do. But it could be an interesting deal. It'd be curious to see. These are the kind of ones where you're just like, I don't understand the value that Intel would bring to Qualcomm, or vice versa.
Gets them more into like desktop market, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. But if you keep both brands, right? Because Qualcomm's going to be, you're not going to call it the Qualcomm Ultra Core. Like it's way too many characters. I don't want a sticker on my laptop that says Qualcomm on it. Yeah, gigantic, 12-point font. It's massive across the.
Right.
So.
We'll see. Again, it's all hearsay and speculation. Apparently, it's just an inform. Multiple people report on it, so I think it technically is true that it happened. But like Qualcomm's made no formal, like we want to buy Intel, and Intel's agreeing to it, and we're just looking for regulation. It's just Qualcomm approached them, and there's been talks about it.
Someone just saw them at a coffee shop together, and the paparazzi got a picture of it, and they're like, "Look what's happening, guys! They're trying to buy each other." I think the interesting thing is Qualcomm even in generative AI at all?
I don't know, actually. I'm sure they are trying to do something, but I've not heard anything about it. Like, it's not on the scale of like NVIDIA, who's like destroying everybody else.
Although they, after their stock split, I don't know that they've been crushing it quite like they used to. I think there was a lot of hype.
Are you saying $2.6 trillion isn't successful?
Well, I just don't think it was. I think everyone was expecting.
Are you just being a hater?
Yeah, I think everyone was expecting to just like keep going.
Yeah, eventually.
Like the moon, this is never going to stop. It's just going to keep growing, and I think it kind of flatlined at that point. Like it didn't really go anywhere from there.
That's fair.
But yeah, no, I still think NVIDIA has a good future for it. Obviously, AI is the future. But that's not going anywhere. So whoever's winning in that field is going to be winning. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but make sure to use multi-factor authentication. Don't put in.
Yeah, right. Make sure you do stuff. What was it? You get right from the beginning.
Yeah, get right, start right. No, start right, get right. Start right, stay right, get right.
That's what it was, which still is backwards to me, but whatever.
So start right with your AI. Don't give it any information you don't want it to have. anything that it comes back out, expect it's going to be used for training unless you're paying for the full version.
Don't use SMS2FA on your AI.
Yeah, there you go. And then ask you questions about like, hey, what would you do with this information that
Yeah, right, exactly.
has proprietary company information in it?
Don't do that.
No bueno.
Cool. Anything else?
I don't think so. No, that's the topics for now. Sounds like we're right at our 30-minute mark, which is amazing. And
Nice.
Yeah, so
Nailed it.
We'll let everyone get back to the office after the lunch break.
Cool.
You should start watching this podcast instead of doing something else during lunch break. That's the takeaway today. So thank you everyone for staying it out. If you're this far in the episode, thank you for making it to 30 minutes. We love you guys. We're here to help make your technology better, work for you, and keep you secure out there. So do that, and make sure to start right, stay right, and then when you're done, get right. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.